Hello everyone, hope all are doing well. So welcome to the 10th session of our WSO2 API Manager community call. Thank you for joining in. I'm Tharika Madurapperuma, and in today's call we will be discussing about the key manager and its architecture. This is an open forum, so all questions are welcome. You can ask questions either via the chat during the presentation or unmute at the end and have a discussion with the API Manager team and the rest of the community. So today, we will be discussing about where the key manager fits in with the other components of WSO2 API Manager. Then let's talk about the main operations performed by the key manager for you to get a better understanding about its capabilities. Finally, we will see how the key manager has evolved across the different versions of WSO2 API Manager and what would be its new developments. I will provide you with key manager specific additional references that you can use to build upon your solution with WSO2 API Manager during the presentation. So where does the key manager actually fit in? Let's look at the bigger picture. On a bird's eye view of WSO2 API Manager, in this slide we can see 5 components in a closed box. What is inside the box? Publisher, developer portal, gateway, key manager, and traffic manager. Then we have analytics on the side. WSO2 API Manager comes with a componentized architecture where each component can be deployed separately if required. Even with a single runtime, these components run with clear separation by communicating over well-defined APIs. This API-driven product design allows the product to be extended by using these interfaces. So let's now identify these components of API Manager and see where would the key manager fit in among them. The publisher, which can be defined as the back office application, is used by API owners to create, publish, and manage the API lifecycle. This component provides a web interface which can be used to develop, document, scale, and version APIs together with features like API monetization. Then the developer portal, which can be named the API marketplace, is used by the API users to discover, register, subscribe to, and consume APIs. The developer portal web interface provides a platform for API publishers to host and advertise their APIs. The gateway component is the API runtime, which is used by API consumers. It is responsible for securing, managing, and scaling the API calls. It intercepts API requests, applies policies such as throttling and security using handlers, and manages API statistics. Then the traffic manager is used by the gateway to enforce throttling. It helps users to regulate API traffic, make APIs and applications available to consumers at different service levels, and secure APIs against security attacks. It features a dynamic throttling engine named Siddhi to process throttling policies in real time. The analytics component collects and processes data for providing insights with business value. This component provides a host of statistical graphs and an alerting mechanism on predetermined events. So what are we left with? The key manager component. What does the key manager do? The key manager is the component that plays the main role in ensuring that your APIs are safe. It is the component which manages all the clients, security, and access token related operations, and it works with the other components hand in hand throughout the entire process of API management. Now let's see how it works. You can see the key manager component highlighted in this diagram. This shows what types of communication are done among the components and which databases they will have contact with. Let's only consider the communications that are important to us with respect to the key manager component. The API gateway will communicate with the key manager to introspect the tokens for validity as well as to validate API subscriptions. The developer portal will communicate with the key manager through the gateway in order to generate, revoke, and regenerate access tokens. It also contacts the key manager to register and unregister auth applications that are created by the user from its interface. With respect to the databases, the key manager communicates with the API manager database, or what we call AMDB, to store user access tokens that are used for verification of API calls. The user-related data are stored in the shared DB, which is also being used by the key manager component for authentication and authorization purposes. So to give you a better understanding about the flow of token generation carried out through the developer portal, let's look at this diagram. To generate an access token, a subscriber first creates an application on the developer portal and generates an access token for the application. Behind the scenes, the developer portal makes a token generation request to the API gateway. The API gateway then requests for an access token from the key manager. Upon receiving the request, the key manager creates an auth client and generates an access token. This access token is sent back to the developer portal via the API gateway. So as now we know how the key manager component fits in with the other components in WSO2 API Manager and how they communicate with each other, let's now get an understanding about the main operations and the capabilities of the key manager. We previously saw that there are two main components that frequently communicate with the key manager. They are the API gateway and the API developer portal. As you can see from the diagram, there are multiple operations that a key manager would perform on behalf of them. To name these operations, they are authentication, authorization, client management, token management, introspection, revocation, and federation. Let's look at what they are more descriptively. Authentication and authorization are two terms that we often confuse ourselves with, isn't it? They look the same and tend to give the same meaning. We use it interchangeably most of the time, but they are truly different. In simple terms, authentication is the process of proving you are who you say you are. We can correspond this to the token generation operation of the key manager. This is because the process of obtaining a valid token requires providing the correct credentials of the client or the auth application. When the application developer registers an application on the developer portal, the application is given a consumer key and a consumer secret, which represents the credentials of the application that is being registered. The consumer key becomes the unique identifier of the application, similar to a user's username, and is used to authenticate users. When an access token is issued for the application, it is issued against the latter mentioned consumer key. So this process of token generation is one of the main tasks carried out by the key manager, as it exposes a token API for this purpose. In contrast, authorization is the act of granting an authenticated party, note the term authenticated, the permission to do something. We can correspond the token validation operation of the key manager with this. This is because the key manager performs the token validation operation during API invocations, and it will grant access to the particular resource only if the conditions of scopes and subscriptions are met. When the gateway receives a request, it talks to the key manager and gets the token validated. This request does not reach the key manager if gateway cache is enabled and the token validation information is available in the cache. But if it reaches the key manager, it checks if the token is active and whether the token is usable to invoke the resource being accessed. If the token is valid, the key manager sends additional details about the token, that is the throttling tier for the subscription and the consumer key to the gateway in the response. In turn, the gateway uses these details to determine if the request should be passed to the backend or not. In the key manager, multiple grant types are supported for the token generation operation, which includes password grant, client credentials grant, and authorization code grant, etc. You can also add custom grant types and extend the existing ones. Supported authorization mechanisms include Auth2, JWT, basic auth, mutual SSL, and API key. These are the mechanisms that can be used to gain access to API resources. You can refer these additional resources in order to write custom grant types in API Manager and extend the existing ones if required. We have the official documentation which explains this process, and there is a sample project which is provided in this documentation. If you're using 2x versions of API Manager, you can refer to the article given here in order to write a custom grant type for WSO2 API Manager. Client management is another operation carried out by the key manager. By the name of it, this refers to the task of managing O2 clients or applications. You are given the capability to register, unregister, list, or update the O2 client information through the key manager. The developer portal provides an interface that can be used to easily perform these tasks. You can see from this diagram how the gateway uses client registration APIs to talk to key manager and perform client management operations. Then token management is another operation we need the key manager for. A token has its own life cycle, and managing this life cycle of a token is important in terms of the security of your API resources. A token's life cycle includes the tasks of generation, revocation, and expiration. As discussed before, generation is where a new token is created. In API Manager, we support generating two different types of access tokens. They are namely application access tokens and user access tokens. Application access tokens are tokens used to identify and authenticate an entire application. An application is a logical collection of many APIs. Using a single application access token, you can invoke all of these APIs. Obtaining an access token with the client credentials grant is an example. Then user access tokens are tokens used to identify the final user of an application. For example, the final user for a mobile application deployed on different devices. Access tokens obtained from the password grant can be correspondent to this. When creating or generating a token, we give it an expiration time after which the token will no longer be valid. In WSO2 API Manager, the default token expiration time is 60 minutes. This value can be changed according to your needs. You can even create tokens that would never expire. Then after issuing an access token, a user or an admin can revoke it in case of theft or a security violation or for any other reason. This is done if you want to withdraw the token before expiry. Then by simple means, the term introspection refers to examination or observation. Similarly, token introspection allows the holder of a token to query the authorization server to discover the set of metadata for a token. This operation is used by the key manager during token validation. The introspection endpoint is implemented on the authorization server side, that is the key manager side. It provides a mechanism for a protected resource to be validated and to obtain meta information of tokens issued by an authorization server. This metadata includes whether or not the token is currently active, or if it has expired or otherwise been revoked, what rights of access the token carries, usually conveyed through O2 scopes, and the authorization context in which the token was generated, including who authorized the token and which client it was issued to. Then identity federation is another capability which can be utilized with a key manager or an authorization server. Organizations cannot survive with authentication and authorization mechanisms that only span a single boundary of trust. Hence, these organizations often provide and consume services across trust boundaries, which may include partners, subsidiaries, customers, or suppliers. Federation makes access easy, as users do not have to remember a different set of credentials for every application they use. However, the users have to provide their credentials to each one of the applications separately, although the credentials used are the same. Shibboleth, Google, and Salesforce are some examples of such identity providers. If your requirement is just to share the same user base with the API platform, identity federation would be recommended instead of using a separate third-party key manager. If you are interested in getting a clear idea about what identity federation is, please refer to the first link in this article. The second resource will give you a good understanding about the identity federation capabilities in API Manager with respect to the 5 different service providers or relying parties. It talks about both 2x and 3x versions of WSO2 API Manager. There are many identity federation protocols such as SAML2 WebSO2, OpenID Connect, WS Trust, WS Federation, etc. So the third resource will give you the steps in configuring WSO2 API Manager to use SAML for identity federation. If you are using 2x versions of API Manager, this would be useful. In WSO2 API Manager, you can make the key manager available in different forms. We have an inbuilt key manager component, which if you want, can be configured as a separate server running with the key manager profile. Then we have a prepackaged distribution of WSO2 Identity Server as the key manager. It comes with the necessary configurations already installed in order to connect it with WSO2 API Manager and is therefore different to pure WSO2 Identity Server product. We also have the capability to configure an external or third-party key manager server as the key manager component of API Manager through extensions. The key manager decouples the auth client and access token management from the rest of its operations so that you can plug in a third-party auth provider for managing auth clients and access tokens. When working with an external key manager, you need to extend the required key manager interfaces based on your requirements. For this, WSO2 API Manager provides two main extension points to implement the functionalities required by the key manager. You can extend one or both. The key manager interface handles functionalities of the communication between the developer portal and the key manager. It contains methods to create, update, get, and delete auth2 applications. It has functionality to map existing consumer keys and secrets, and also to generate the application access tokens. The key validation handler handles functionalities of the communication between gateway and the key manager. It contains methods to validate the token, subscriptions, scopes, and also to generate JSON Web Tokens or JWTs. Some of the third-party key manager servers that you can plug in with WSO2 API Manager includes Okta, OpenAM, WSO2 Identity Server, and SurfAuth. This is an additional resource which you can use to configure Okta as a third-party key manager with WSO2 API Manager. So previously, we discussed about the key manager operations. Now, let's quickly see how the architecture of key manager has evolved in different stages of the WSO2 API Manager product and what we can expect in the future. In WSO2 API Manager versions prior to 1.9.0, the components were tightly coupled with the key manager. Why do I say so? Token validation was done by directly accessing the database, and there were no standard APIs used for creating auth clients. This resulted in not being able to plug in API Manager with any external authorization server. Even though organizations might be interested in utilizing their own authorization server, or if they want to use advanced features that it has, this tightly coupled architecture of Key Manager had made it difficult to do so. Therefore, taking this limitation into consideration, after API Manager version 1.9.0, this architecture was revamped to make all integration points with the Key Manager extensible. The product was shipped with standard extension points, which made bringing in your own authorization server a possibility. In case if the third-party authorization server deviates from the standard, you need to implement the Key Manager interface as mentioned before and plug in your own implementation. Can the future be better? Of course. As part of our new developments, we will be decomposing or removing the requirement for a prepackaged WSO2 identity server as the key manager, and will be moving into a pure third-party key manager approach. With this, you will be able to plug in your own third-party authorization server by simply making use of a connector. There will be connectors available for authorization servers like Okta, Keycloak, Auth0, and pure WSO2 identity server product. You can simply connect through UI, and there will be no requirement to write extensions to the key manager interface unless there are customizations. With the existing architecture, we could only support a single key manager per subscription. And if you want to get authenticated from different key managers, customizations and extensions were a necessity. But with our new development, you can register the required key manager with the connector, assign the key manager into the respective API that needs to be authenticated, subscribe to the API, generate tokens from the configured key manager, and invoke the API by selecting the respective key manager. So I hope you have now got a better understanding about the key manager and its architecture. We discussed where the key manager fits in among the componentized architecture of WSO2 API Manager. What are the operations performed by the key manager, and how key manager has evolved across the versions together with its new developments. Now, let's move on to the open discussion session. Please share if you have any thoughts or comments, and you can raise any questions you have now so that the API Manager team can give their insights.
Yeah, hi Chandra here.
Yes, John.
Yeah, so basically, like I'm looking for financial grade API. You must have heard because you already have open banking solution, right? So, is there any plan to bring in FAPI certification to your
Sorry, Shanta,
WSO2 identity server?
so we couldn't really hear you. Can you repeat the question?
Just a second, give me a moment.
Yeah. So my question was that your open banking solution, like it is FAPI certified, financial API grade. Okay. So my question is there any plans, future plans to bring that functionality to WSO2 identity server?
You mean the open banking features, Chandra? Is that your question?
No, I know that WSO2 has an open banking solution already, right?
Right.
My question is, are you planning to bring a FAPI grade like certification to WSO2 identity server? Is there any plans?
No, Chandra. At a high level, I don't think so. So the open banking will remain as a vertical solution of its own. So open banking uses the identity server and the API manager behind the scenes to serve its functionality. However, I don't think so. Identity solution will always remain as a identity solution, right? So they're competing in the spaces of Okta, Auth0, ping identity, ForgeRock, and so on. So it will be operating in that space. So you can use the IS to build open banking solutions, just like what we have done. But I don't think we will be bringing the open banking specifics into IS.
No, it's not about open banking specific. So see, for the regions like Australia, UK, that in terms of open banking, you can say. But if we are expanding from open banking to simple banking, right? Right, all the financial APIs, they need this. So your solution is basically more towards inclined towards, or maybe specific towards UK open banking or PSD2 or Australia open banking. My point is that if my requirement is not for those APIs, so do I mandatorily need to use your open banking solution? That's my point.
So not really. So we have two types of users who use our open banking solution and who build open banking solutions. So of course, I believe so using our open banking solution would make a lot of things easier for you. So basically it does support the Australia, UK specs and so on and some others. The Singapore thing is also coming up. However, there's another set of customers who use our API manager and perhaps IS2 to build open banking solutions themselves. So for better customizability and for better flexibility, they may choose that path of using API manager and building their own solution. But there are a lot of people who are using the open banking solution out of the box as well.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Yep.
And yeah, the session is actually really good. I really appreciate that.
Thanks a lot. Tharika, I think there's a question on the chat as well. It says, is DCR, DCRM required for a third-party key manager? I think the answer is yes, right? So depending, so in most cases, we will consume all of the features of these, key managers like application registration and application modification and so on. So which basically makes the store function in its full power. So what that means is, yes, if DCR and DCRM is supported, you can basically utilize all of the features we have in the product. However, if they are not supported, you can still utilize a certain part of it, like the parts related to the token validation, but not the parts related to the client ID, secret generation, and so on. So I guess, yeah, that's the answer to the question.
Yeah, so hi Chandra again. One more question. So in the slides where we are telling the future of key manager, they are talking about the connectors for key clock or Okta. So when is this release plan? Any idea? Any rough figures?
Yeah, it will be towards the mid of July, Chandra.
Okay, okay, great. Thanks.
Do we have any other questions or any thoughts or comments that you would share? Okay, so as the time is running out, I think we can wrap it up. So thank you everyone for participating in the 10th community call discussion today. So this session is recorded and we will be putting it up on our YouTube channel soon. Our next community call is scheduled to be held on the 9th of July. So please fill out the following Google form if you have any topic suggestions for our next session. And also please send in your suggestions for the agenda. We are happy to consider them. You can also join our ongoing conversations on WSO2 API Manager using Slack, Twitter, and the dev mailing list. You can find out more about our product by visiting our website and our YouTube channel as well. So thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you.